So this is a video 701, 702 that you should work on for the practice. So let's get started. That is nothing. Last week Tom walked 4.23 miles per day for 6 days. So every day for 6 days he ran this. He walked. So 4 2/3 times 6. This is the walking. He also ran 6.5 miles every day for 5 days. Yeah. So the simple question here, I'm just asking you how much did he walk and run altogether. So let's find out how many miles he walked. So you can do 4 2/3 plus 4 2/3 plus 4 2/3 6 times, or you can multiply by 6. So either or works. So let's change. I'm going to change 4 2/3 to a improper. 3 times 4 is 12, plus 2 is 14, and you get 14 over 3. You multiply by 6. I saw some of you guys multiplying this, and then all of a sudden you change that to 1 over 6. That's for division. For multiplication, we're not multiplying, changing, or as you like to say, flipping this. We're not. So keep it as it is. 14 times, we can simplify before we multiply, right? So this becomes 3 divided by 3 is 1, 6 divided by 3 is 2. So 28 miles. As far as walking goes, the total for 6 days, if he walks 4 2/3 every day, you end up walking 28 miles. The run, 6.5 divided times 5, so 2 times 6 is 12, plus 1 is 13 over 2. You'll multiply that by 5. Put it over 1. We can't simplify here, so 13 times 5 is 65, and 2 times, and 1 is just 2. And 65 divided by 2 is just 62. Sorry. Not 62, 32 and a half. Yeah, 2 goes to 65, 32 times, which is 64, 1 left over. So this is how much he ran. So he did a lot of running and walking this week. So I want the total. This one's nice and easy. Add 28, so the total miles that he ran was 28. The total miles that he ran was 32 and a half. If you add this, you can change that. I'm going to change 32 and a half to 32.5. Makes my life a little bit easier with decimal, right? So 32.5. That is placeholder 0, so you get 5. 8 and 2 is 10, goes 1, 6. So he walked and ran for a total of, so you please write that sentence. He walked and ran 60.5 miles in total for that week. Explain and solve this one. So, my God. I'm going to solve it first because maybe that's easier. So this way, this problem, I'm going to write it like this. 3/4, and it's divided by negative 2 over 7. Which we're going to then add negative 1/5, right? The first thing I want you to write, and I'm not going to write this, you should be writing. The first thing I'm going to do is divide 3/4 by 2/7. So all this should be in writing, right? So 3/4 times the reciprocal, which is negative 7 over 2, plus negative 1/5, right? So let's take care of division. Now that I changed the multiplication, I can't simplify. So 3 times 7 on top is negative 21. 4 times 2 at the bottom is 8, which I'm going to add now to negative 1 over 5. LCM is 40, negative. This is also negative. So times 5 on top, I get 105. And this is times 8 became 40, so on top becomes 8. So I found two equivalent expressions, fractions. It's a negative plus a negative, so it's going to be a bunch more negatives together, right? So the denominator of 40 stays. And 105 plus 8 is 113. So the final answer is negative 113 over 40, which if you want to change the mixed number, again, remember it's going to be negative. 40 goes into 113 2 times, which is 80. 33 left over 40. Now, write all this in words. So first thing I did, I divided 3/4 divided by negative 2/7. I changed negative 2/7 to its reciprocal. I changed the division to multiplication, and I multiplied 3/4 times 7 over 2. Okay, and then so talk about what happens here. I multiplied 3 times negative 7. I got negative 21, and then 4 times 2 is 8. So once I find the product, I then add it to negative 1/5. I had to find the common denominator, which was 40. So I changed negative 21 over 8 to 105 over 40. It's an equivalent fraction. I changed negative 1/5 to negative 8/40, again, to an equivalent fraction. And then I can now add these two because they have the same denominator. So you can talk all about that. And final answer is this. So you were supposed to write this in detail as to go. So it's actually nice if you solve it first and then you write it, right? I think it makes it easier for you to talk about it. So this one, I know Larry wants to run 34 miles in 5 days. Has he done that so far? Well, obviously I'm looking by the numbers. It doesn't look like this adds up to 34. So I need to find out how many miles he needs to run on Friday to reach 34 miles. So let's see what he has so far. So it's 5.5 plus 4 3/4 plus 7 1/8 plus 8 1/4, right? So that's what he has done so far. So let's change all this to equivalent fractions. So the LCM, so I'm going to change everything. So the LCM is 8, right? So I'm going to change everything so that it has an 8. If you like to change everything to an improper fraction, it's the same thing too. So it's just a matter of choice. So how did the 2 become an 8 times 4? So it's times 4 on top, so it's 4 over 8. 4 become an 8, it's times 2, so times 2 on top, so 3 times 2 is 6. 7/8, I'm sorry, 8 just no changes here. How did the 4 become an 8 times 2? So it's times 2 on top. Now I have my fractions, right? So I should have maybe written them down. But if I add my whole numbers, let's focus on the whole numbers. 5 plus 4, which is 9, plus 7, which is 16, and 16 plus 8 is 24. So I got 24 as my whole numbers. My fractions, it's going to be 8 over here, right? So let's add the numerators. 4 plus 6 is 10, plus 1 is 11, and 11 plus 2 is 13. Well, I can't leave it like that, right? So 24 is going to stay, but let's change the 13. So let's change this, because this is an improper fraction. Let's change 13 over 8 to an improper mixed number. 8 goes to 13 one time, 5 left over, 8 at the bottom. Now you notice that I have 2 whole numbers, a 24 and a 1. I can add those two and make it a 25 and 5 over 8. So that's how much he has ran so far. Now, to find out how much more he needs to run on Friday, I do 34, which is what he needs to run, and subtract what he has already read. Yeah? So I'm going to erase this 25 and 5/8. Remember that number. 25, and I'm going to write it like this. So this is how much he ran, and I'm going to subtract, right? Let's do some borrowing. So this, if that was a decimal, I would put a 0, right? And I would put a 0 and then borrow, but it's not decimal. We're dealing with fractions. So what I can do is the same thing. Well, this is going to be 33, and I'm going to borrow a whole one over here, right? Now, instead of 1, I'm going to change it to a fraction. And because the denominator here is at the bottom is 8, I'm going to change that 1 to something like that, 8 over 8. Isn't that equal to 1 anyway? Right? So now I can subtract. 8 minus 5 is 3. 8 is my denominator. 8 is 8. 33 minus 25 is what? It's 8. So my final answer is 8 3/8. So on Friday, this gentleman needs to run 8 3/8 miles to reach his goal of 34. Okay. By God, I hope this is being recorded. And it is. Good. Moving on. Now, the price of gold, 1 gram of gold. So on the first week, it went up by 155. Okay, so I don't know what the starting price is. I know that it went up 155, and then I'm going to write all this as an addition problem. So plus, I'm going to put negative 3.225, and then plus 0.725, right? It went up again. And lastly, on the last week, went up another 2.25. So I need to figure out this expression first. If the answer is positive, it means the price of gold went up. If the answer is negative, it means it went down. So add these two first. And I don't know why you're making mistakes here. So right away I can tell you the answer is negative, right? There's more negatives. The absolute value is bigger, right? So let's do that over here. 3.225, right? So if I add 155 plus negative 3.225, I'm going to have more negatives. I make 0 pairs. And find the difference between them. Let's subtract these two numbers. Add a placeholder, 5 minus 0, 0. I'm going to do some borrowing. 2, 12, 11, and 12. 12 minus 5 is 7. 11 minus 5 is 6. 2 minus 1 is, so I'm getting negative 1675. Which I'm now going to add plus 0.725. Right, and I'll take this guy right here. So if I add negative 1.675 plus 0, plus whatever that is, 0.725, what do you think my answer is going to be? Well, there's more negatives. The negative has a bigger absolute value, so I know my answer is negative. Let's figure out how much that is. And to do that, I'm going to subtract both numbers. Right? And 0.725, let's subtract. 5 minus 5 is 0. 2 minus 7 minus 2 is 5. Borrow here, that's 0. 16 minus 7 is, no idea, 9? 9. So I get negative 0.95. Again, you can tell that it's negative because they were negative. So I'm done with this part, and I'm done with this part. And lastly, I got to add plus 2.25. So I have negative 0.95 plus 2.25. I know my answer is going to be positive. Why? Because there's more positives. So you've got to figure out how many more positives do we have. So in order to do that, we're going to find the difference between them. So I got 2.25 minus 0.95. Let's subtract. 5 minus 5 is 0. I need some help here. 12 minus 9 is 3. And 1 minus 0 is 0. So it's 1.3. So 1.3 or 1.30. So at the end of 4 weeks, the price of gold, because it ended positive, it went up. Okay, so you need to write all that down. You need to do your calculations and figure out that after 4 weeks, the price of gold went up by $1.30. Keep that number in mind. So let me write this down. Start, change, final. At the end of week 4, the price of gold was 40. Uh-oh, I forgot the number. 1.3. So let me write this here before I forget. 1.3. So at the end of the week, at the end of week 4, the price of gold was 40.25. So at the end, so that means the final price of gold was 40.25. I know that there has been a positive change, right? So the change was 1.3. What was the starting price? So here was your price of gold. It went up by $1.30 and it ended up at 40.25. So it's around $38, $39, right? So you can think of you can estimate your answer more or less. So around $39. That's what you're looking for, right? It started at a price, it went up by $1.30, and it's now 40.25. It has to make some sense. So how do we find the starting price? You do final minus change. Your final was $40.25. What was your change? 1.3. So let's subtract 1.3. Have a 0 over here. If you subtract 5 minus 0 is 5. I need to do some borrowing. That's a 3. That's a 10. Becomes a 9. That's a 12. 12 minus 3 is 9. 3 minus 1 is 8. And 3 just comes down. So it started at 38.95. So see if it makes sense. So the price of gold was $38.95. It went up by $1.30 and ended up at $40.25. Does it make sense? It does. So if you have some number like 138, it went up by 130, ends up at 40.25. That doesn't even make sense. Check your answer and carefully just ask yourself, does it make sense? That's your review. And then there's one more set, and I'll do it about time. Because I want to go home. Yeah, I do have time. Again, same idea. Walked last week. Tom walked 3 3/5 for 3 days. So we're going to repeat that 3 days. And then he ran 7 1/4 miles for 6 days every day. Let's figure out how many he walks. So it's 5 3/5. So let's change that to a improper. 5 times 5 is 25 plus 3, so 28 over 5. Let's multiply that by 3 because he did that 3 times. It's going to be over 1, so it's going to be 5, and then 24 goes to 84/5. And I'm going to leave it as a, what do you call, improper fraction. Okay, so for 3 days, he walked that much. Now, the run, 4 times 7 is 28, plus 1 is 29 over 4 times 6. And we can simplify. Divide by 2 is 2, divide by 2 is 3, and it's going to be something over 2, and 29 times 3 is 7, 87. So this is the walk, and this is the run. All right, so miles, and again miles here. So we got to combine, I'm going to add these to find the total number of miles he ran and walked. So it's 84 over 5 plus 87 over 2. LCM is 10. So this is times 2, so on top is times 2, so it's 8, 16. Times 5 and times 5 on top, 5 times 5 is 35, goes 340, 435. It's going to be 10, 435 plus 168. 13 goes 1 is 10, goes 1, 603. If I change this to a improper fraction, a mixed number, 10 goes into 603 60 times, because 10 times 60 is 600. I'm going to have 3 left over for 10. I can leave that. So in total, Tom ran 60 3/10 of a mile. Okay, in total. And this is all the work you should show. Second one, again, it's easier if you solve it and then explain it. So we're going to divide this by negative 8 over 9, and then we're going to subtract, we're going to add negative 2/7. So let's take care of our division first by multiplying by its reciprocal. So it's 2/5 times 9 over 8, negative. Simplify, that becomes a 1. 8 divided by 2 is 4. So now we're going to have negative 9 over 20. Yeah, our division, which we're going to add to plus negative 2 over 7. Let me bring this on top. The LCM is 140, I think. Anything closer? No. They're both going to be negative. Added the 20 becomes 140. It's times 7, so times 7 on top. 9 times 7 is 63. And how did the 7 becomes 140? Times 20, so times 20 on top becomes 40. You notice it's a negative plus a negative, so my answer is going to be negative 140. And 63 plus 40 is just 103. Negative 103 over 140. So all this, you can now explain how you change the division to a multiplication problem by multiplying by the reciprocal. And then the product of that, you're going to add negative 2/7, and you find the LCM, blah, blah, blah. And please mention that your answer is this, right? Larry wants to run total 25 miles. So this is how much he ran so far. Wait, so how many more miles does he need to run on Friday to reach 34? So, oh, sorry, there's definitely a mistake there. So we're going to, mistake. So let's keep this at 25. Change that and make it 25. So how much more does he need to run on Friday to reach 25 miles? So let's add what we have. 4 3/4 plus 2 1/5 plus 6 3/8 plus 5 3/5. The LCM, and it works out, that's going to be 40. So everything changes to 40. So we're going to find the equivalent fraction here. 40 is times 10, so that becomes times 30 times 8. So on the top is times 8. 8 times 5 is 40, so on top is 15. And the last one, 5 times 8 is 40, so on top is also times 8, so it's 24. We can now add all the fractions. Let's add all the whole numbers. 4 plus 2 is 6. 6 plus 6 is 12. And 12 plus 5 is 17. So my whole number is 17. The bottom is going to be 40. Let's add the numerators. 30 plus 8 is 38. 38 plus 15 is 53. And 53 plus 24 is going to be 77. Which this we're going to change to a mixed number. So if you change 77 over 40 to a mixed number, 40 goes into 70 one time. So you get 17, 1, 40 goes 71 time, and 33 over 4. You can't have a mixed number with two whole numbers, so we can combine the 17 and the 1 to make 18, 33 over 4. So that's how much he has run so far. We want to see how much he needs to run on Friday to reach 25 miles. So let me 18, 33 over 4. 18, 33 over 4, right? So 25 is his goal, so let's subtract what he already has run. Ran 18, 33 over 40, right? So let's subtract. I think if you subtract like this, a little bit easier. So again, if this was a decimal, we would put a 0, but it's not. We're dealing with fractions, so this is going to be 25. It's going to turn 24. I borrow, so it's going to be a 1 here, right? So I can change that 1 to a fraction, and I'm going to change that 1 in this case to 40 over 40, because that's the same thing as 1, right? 40. 40 over 40. Now I can subtract. On this side is something over 40. 40 minus 33 is 7. And 24 minus 18 is 6. So how much more does he need to run on Friday? 6 and 7 over 40. The table below shows the price of 1 gram of gold for the past 4 weeks, blah, 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 blah. So how did the price change? Well, let's add them up. 2.25 plus negative 4.225 plus 0.725, and then it went down again, plus negative 1.25. So let's do these two first, right here. You're going to have a negative number. I know that for sure because the negative, the bigger number here, right, in terms of absolute value. So how much bigger is that from the other one? So let's subtract 4.225 minus 2.25. Placeholder 5. Let's do some borrowing. 12 minus 5 is 7. 11 minus 2 is 9. 3. So you get negative 1.975. Now I'm going to add that plus 0.725, right? This component right here. So I can tell you my answer is still going to be negative, because negative is bigger, right? So let's subtract these two. 1.975, and then the other number is 0.725. 0, 5, 2, and 1. So you get negative 1.25. So I'm already here. And then plus 1.25. Wow, it's going to be here. 1.25, negative 1.25 plus 1.25 is just 0. So after all that up and down every week, did the price increase or decrease? No, it went up, it went down, it went up, and it went up. It ended back to where it was. So the price change was literally 0. So almost as nothing happened. So when you write this, in this case, you will write the price did not increase or decrease. It stayed the same after 4 weeks. So if you write start, change, and final, at the end of the 4th week, the price of gold was $30.50. What was the change? 0. So what was my starting price? Obviously, it has to be the same, right? Because it didn't change at all. It went up and down, went up and down. But guess what? It came back to the original price. So this one was pretty easy. Okay, so that's it. I need to see these questions done in order for you to do the other questions, to maybe correct your mistakes. Okay.